16 and Away from Home by Arleta Richardson. Chapter 8. A Honey of an Idea. November 25th, 1889. Thanksgiving is over, and there are just a few weeks until Christmas. We're trying to think of something nice to give Letty and Jacob. SJ thinks doing something would be good, but we haven't decided what it could be.
Mabel, have you noticed that Letty looks awfully tired lately?
Sarah Jane looked up from her book to ask the question.
I guess I have,
I replied.
but I didn't know whether she was tired or worried about something.
Maybe we're more of a burden on her than we think.
How could nice, sensible young ladies like us be a burden to anyone?
Sarah Jane said with a laugh.
I'll admit she has more work than she'd have if we weren't here, but Letty seems to thrive on work. If she doesn't have any to do, she makes it up.
Just then Letty called up the stairs. Girls, would you like some hot chocolate?
Let's see if we can find out what's bothering her,
I said as we ran downstairs to join Letty and Jacob in the kitchen.
I'm glad we're not delegated to the dining room to eat any longer,
Sarah Jane said as we sipped the hot drink.
We didn't know if you'd want to be bothered with two old codgers like us,
Jacob said.
I know what a nice fellow I am, but I've been Letty's brother all these years, and I'm still not sure about her.
His eyes twinkled, and he grinned happily at Letty.
Oh, go on with you,
she replied.
We just wanted you girls to know that this was your home, and you were free to do as you wanted. I had thought you might prefer to eat by yourselves.
I shook my head.
We like it much better out here with you. The dining room makes us feel like company. Letty, are we too much work for you?
Letty looked surprised.
Work? I should say not. I don't know what we'd have done, the two of us rattling around this big place all winter. Jacob prefers his rooms over the Carriage House, and I'd have been all alone in the house without you two girls. We just thought you looked sort of tired,
Sarah Jane explained.
We can help out more if you are.
No, Letty replied. I'm not tired. I've been a mite concerned about our sister Emma, but I haven't seen my way clear to go visit her lately.
She only lives about 60 miles away, doesn't she?
Sarah Jane asked.
You could get there on a train in a couple of hours.
I know, but it would be more than a one-day trip, Letty said. I couldn't be away more than a day.
I don't know why not,
Jacob put in.
I dare say the three of us could keep the house standing for a few days.
Of course we could, I said.
You could go on the Friday afternoon train and come back Sunday evening. We'd manage just fine.
Well, I don't know, Letty began doubtfully. I suppose I might leave food that you could shove in the oven or heat up easily.
That's a great idea, Letty,
Sarah Jane exclaimed.
We know how to take care of meals and dishes, and Jacob would be here in case we needed anything. You go ahead and visit your sister. What could go wrong?
It was soon settled that Letty would leave the next Friday.
You should never have said what could go wrong, I told Sarah Jane as we went back upstairs. That does nothing but tempt fate.
Oh, Mabel, she scoffed. Don't be silly.
You know we don't believe in fate. The Lord directs our paths, and He's certainly watched over us in the past. Besides, we're becoming quite mature, and I don't have any qualms about being in charge for the weekend.
Letty was ready to leave when we arrived home from school on Friday. After lengthy directions as to what food there was to eat and how to prepare it, she followed Jacob to the buggy.
Will it be all right if Molly spends the night with us tonight?
Sarah Jane asked.
We'll stay in and play games.
I think that would be nice, Letty answered. You might make some taffy and popcorn. Have a nice time, and I'll see you Sunday evening. We waved as they left for the station and then went to put our books away.
Let's go over and get Molly right away,
Sarah Jane suggested.
We'll have a nice long evening to have fun.
Mrs. Matson was a little uneasy. Are you sure you girls will be all right with Letty gone? You will be sensible, won't you? Oh, Mama, Molly protested. We aren't babies. Jacob is there if we need anything, and Letty said it would be fine. Mrs. Matson didn't look too convinced, but she said no more. We left in high spirits, excited over the evening ahead. Letty had put potatoes and a meatloaf in the oven to bake. We worked together to fix a vegetable, slice bread, and cut the pie for supper. Sarah Jane undertook the job of brewing coffee for Jacob.
Don't know when I've had a better meal,
he pronounced when he had finished.
or better company to eat it with. And that coffee was strong enough to go out and find a job on its own. You ladies did right well." He pushed back his chair. "I'll build up the fire for you, and then I'll be going back out to my room. I can come in and close up and bank the stove before I go to bed if you like."
"Oh, no," we assured him. "We can take care of everything, and we'll have your breakfast ready at the usual time." Jacob brought in more wood, put on his hat and coat, and headed for the carriage house. We quickly cleared up the kitchen and then got out our game of dominoes and set it up on the table. It wasn't until the clock struck 8 that Sarah Jane remembered the taffy.
"Let's stop and make it now," she suggested. "Molly, you pop some corn and we'll get the stuff for the candy."
I rummaged in the kitchen cupboard for pans, and Sarah Jane went in the pantry in search of butter and brown sugar for the taffy.
"There isn't enough brown sugar here," she called. "What'll we do?"
"We can put molasses with it," I replied. "I think Letty has some in the storage room out back. I'll go get it." I found the molasses and something else. "Look here," I said. The girls came to see.
"Oh, it's the honey that has sugared," Sarah Jane said. "I heard Letty say just the other day she didn't have much honey left that she could use. She wished she had that melted down so she could cook with it."
"Why don't we do it for her and surprise her when she gets home?" I suggested. "It's only 5 gallons, and we can lift it with all 3 of us helping. We'll just put it on the back of the stove, and it can melt slowly." Carefully, we lifted the big metal container of honey and set it on the stove. Then we popped the corn and boiled the molasses, brown sugar, and butter for the candy. By the time we were finished with our treat, it was time to go to bed.
"We'll check the doors and close the damper on the stove, and everything will be ready for the night,"
Sarah Jane said.
"I'll carry the lamp, and you can each bring a warming brick for the beds."
Molly felt the side of the honey can. "It's just barely warm," she said. "But do you think we should pry the top up a little before we leave? Does honey expand or contract when it's heated?" None of us knew, so just to be safe, I loosened the cap on the spout so the steam could escape. "I don't care to hear that pop off in the night," I said. "It will be all right now." We brought a cot into our room and made up a bed for Molly. It seemed like only minutes after we'd fallen asleep that I felt someone poking me. "Mabel," Sarah Jane whispered. "Are you awake?" "Not by choice," I replied. "Why are you awake? Are you sick?"
"No, but I think I smell something. Do you smell anything?"
"You can always smell something," I replied. "What kind of anything are you talking about?" By this time, Molly was awake. "What's the matter?" she said. "Is someone sick?"
"Not yet, but I think I'm about to be," Sarah Jane said. "I smell something."
Molly and I both sat up and sniffed the air. "Something is baking," Molly decided. "The honey!" I cried, and all 3 of us leapt from the beds and headed for the door.
"The lamp!"
Sarah Jane yelled.
"We can't go down without a light."
We all dashed for the lamp on the dresser and collided in the middle of the room. "We'll have to calm down," Molly said sensibly. "Light the lamp and we'll go to the kitchen together." After several tries, the lamp was lighted and we ran to the stairs. The sweet odor of honey became stronger as we descended.
"We didn't put on our wrappers or house shoes,"
Sarah Jane's teeth chattered.
"We'll freeze down here."
"We can't go back now," I said. "The kitchen will be warm." And indeed it was. Warm and sweet and sticky. We huddled in the doorway and stared at the sight before us. Honey bubbled gently and silently out of the spout, over the sides of the tin, down the stove, and across the kitchen floor.
"What are we going to do?"
Sarah Jane moaned. "We'll have to get that honey off the stove," Molly declared emphatically, and she waded resolutely into the sticky mess. "It's hot," I warned her. "We can't lift it down. It would slop all over the floor." They both looked at me. "Well, worse than it is now." "Shall we pour water in the stove and put the fire out?" Molly said.
"That wouldn't work,"
Sarah Jane replied.
"It takes hours for the stovetop to cool. We'll just have to call Jacob to take it off. You go, Mabel."
"I knew that we didn't mean all of us," I muttered. "I can't go back upstairs with sticky feet, and I'm not going out in the snow in bare ones." We can't just stand here and watch that honey pour out of the spout, Sarah Jane said in despair. Here, put on Letty's old garden boots. There seemed to be no way around it, so I stuck my honey-covered feet into the boots and ran for the carriage house. Jacob dressed quickly, and within seconds he was standing at the back door. Oh my, I should have stayed in bed. Briskly, he donned a pair of heavy gloves, carried the honey can outside, and placed it in the snow. Then he returned to survey the kitchen. If there's anywhere that stuff hasn't gone, I fail to see it, he said. I suppose you had a very good reason for putting honey on a hot stove, but I don't see that either. We might as well get busy and clean it up. He looked at us huddled around the stove. Can't say as you're dressed for the job, but there's no backing out of it now. Where do we start? Sarah Jane wailed. I don't even know what to do. Maybe we could put snow on the floor and shovel the honey out with it, Molly suggested. Not a bad idea, Jacob nodded. You girls get soap melted and water hot for scrubbing, and I'll shovel. As the clock struck 2, we wearily washed our feet and headed back upstairs. Jacob had assured us that he would say nothing to Letty, and that she would be happy to have her honey melted down. Of course, she thought she had more than 1 gallon in that can, he chuckled. She may wonder a bit about that. Letty returned Sunday, rested and reassured. You got along just fine, did you? She said as we carried her things into the house. It's good to be back. She sniffed appreciatively. Smells good in here. Did you bake something while I was gone? No, I said. We ate just what you left us. We're glad to have you back, too. Letty headed for the kitchen. How about nice hot biscuits and honey for supper? Jacob leaned against the stair rail and bit his lip to keep from laughing. Sarah Jane clapped her hand over her mouth. From the kitchen we heard Letty's voice as she talked to herself. Now how in the world did this honey get behind my stove? End of chapter 8.